Michael. So today I'm sitting with Michael Lohan. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good. You've come all the way to Florida to see me in person, but we've been friends for 14 years now?
Yeah, a long time.
So I'm so honored that you did. You came to see me and my dogs, and so it's been really fun hanging out with you and your
Likewise.
two amazing sons who I love and I've known since they were babies, basically.
Well, how could I resist? I mean, you're doing so well with the podcast, and we've gotten so many great people together. I mean, you've done I'm really impressed with what you've done.
Thank you so much. So I was trying to go back to when we actually first met, and it was about 14 years ago, right? What's your recollection of how we first met?
We met through David Weintraub. You were going to do a TV show, and he had put me in touch with you, and one thing led to another, and you ended up doing the show. There were some negotiations that didn't go your way, but we fixed those.
Right.
And then we wound up, he represented Too Short, that rapper guy. And the two of you came out to my place in the Hamptons.
Right. Yeah. Well, so we became friends through that whole thing, but you really helped me. I was actually going to be on Celebrity Apprentice.
Yes.
And then Celebrity Rehab called and asked me to be on it, which I was like, I don't have an addiction. I don't even want to go on this.
Yeah.
But after we negotiated $400,000 for the season, which at the time was like the most anyone had been paid.
I remember that all too well.
Yes.
They didn't want to pay it, but you got it.
Yes. So it was quite incredible. And it was an amazing experience, which because you did the season after
Well, the funny part, though, is that for someone who really didn't have a drug or alcohol addiction, you were there for love addiction.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there for drug or alcohol addiction either. When I did the show,
Right.
I was there for relationship addiction or codependency.
Right.
So it was kind of funny that we were chosen to be on an addiction show when we didn't have the kind of addictions the other people had on the show.
Right, which at first I was really hesitant about, but as I got into it, I mean, I remember saying, and they filmed it, but saying to Dr. Drew, this seems so ridiculous. People are here detoxing on heroin. They're, having a really difficult time. I don't even feel like I'm a celebrity. How am I even on this? And for me to go in there when they're really dealing with addictions, and I'm here to deal with love addiction, which I don't even believe is a real thing, I feel like I should leave.
But it is.
It is. And he was like, nope, just stay. And I will say after the 3 weeks of filming, it was some of the most intense sort of therapy I had ever done. And then I ended up going on tour with him about love addiction. And to this day, I still, it's something that I follow up on. It's something that I help people with. It's something that I truly believe is an addiction.
Well, it's paying it forward. But see, that's the funny part, because even that show is kind of misunderstood too, because people don't understand. I mean, the message and the narrative that, or what people get out of our life experience is so important. And it doesn't have to be a drug or alcohol or any other kind of addiction. I mean, I think gambling addiction is something that's very relative, but for someone with codependency and even love addiction issues, it's a lot of people have them, but they don't discuss them.
Right.
And they're very serious.
Yeah, and they don't think it's real either. Right. And so what's interesting is codependency is, something that most people suffer from. I mean, a lot of people have hard times, and it also leads to other addictions. Same thing with love addiction. When people are suffering with bad relationships or having an issue with, replacing intimacy for real love, and they get involved in things that are really toxic because they think that to them is love. That becomes a problem, and it starts off a whole, spiral of patterns that go into real addictions, not real, but, more tangible addictions, which are like the alcohol and the sex and the drugs.
From relationships, when they go sour, they don't work out. A lot of people do resort to drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
So they are, they're directly connected.
Right.
No doubt.
So later on in your life, you ended up getting into, that path and helping in the treatment centers, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
There's a long path before that.
Yeah. So the first question I wanted to start with you is, how do you think you are best known by most people?
Unfortunately, is Lindsay Lohan's dad.
Okay. And why do you say unfortunately for that?
Because I'm not just Lindsay's dad. I'm Allie, Cody, Michael, Landon, Logan. I'm their dad too.
Right. So just give me a brief history, like how old is your oldest? How old is your youngest? Explain the whole gamut.
Lindsay's 36, Michael's 35, Allie's 28, Cody's 27. And then, he'll be 27 in 2 days. And then you have Landon, who's 10, and Logan, that's 8.
Right. And do you want to get into the last child or the child?
Other child.
The other
that
child.
Claim,
yeah.
The other child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there was a period in time when Dina and I were separated, and there was someone I knew from way back when I started working on Wall Street in like 1982, 1983. Mm-hmm. And I got a phone call. I was living on Long Island, and she said, Michael, I'm not in Texas anymore. I'm on Long Island. Mm-hmm. And I'm in a marriage that's really, really bad, and I have to get out of here. Can you help me? And I said, sure, I'll do whatever I can. And I did, and we wound up spending 2 occasions together. And 15 years later, I got notified from her and the court that she said that I had a child. Mm. And at that time, we'll get to it later on, but I was unable to go to court in Montana because she had moved from Long Island to Texas to Arizona, then Montana. And I was unable to go to the court hearing. And I was served on a Sunday on my father's funeral, which is illegal. Mm. But they had the hearing anyway, and with no DNA test or anything. And in my absentia, they ordered that I was a father, right, and ordered me to pay child support.
And not only that, they in arrears for 15 years.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
Well, I did pay from the time she was 15 to 18, but they held me also that I had to pay from the time she was born until she was 15 years old.
Wow.
So I've been paying all the arrears ever since as well.
Even though there's been no paternity
No
test.
legitimate paternity test,
right,
and I wasn't even at the hearing. And even so, even if the child was my child, mm-hmm, why should I have to pay from the time I didn't even know she was my child or before it passed?
So just to clarify, she waited 15 years.
And she was married to someone else at that time.
Which probably was the reason she didn't.
It's unheard of.
Right.
And, if you really look at it, law is law.
Mm-hmm.
And if you served him properly on a Sunday when that service isn't legal, they shouldn't have held me in contempt, and they shouldn't have, ordered that judgment in my absentia. So,
Right. But devil's advocate, and which is an upstanding thing that you've done, you've paid all the back child support, and you continue to pay child support, right?
Yep.
So have you seen this child ever?
Yeah, a couple of times, yeah.
And you said she looks like you?
Well, there's similarities, definitely, without a doubt. But then
either way, you have no problem with it. At this point.
No.
Okay, so all in all, that is 4, 5, 6, 7 children. Mm-hmm. Wow. I have one, and it's a lot.
Yes.
So.
Joke.
So
no, we don't have a child together. So.
Yeah, it's kidding. Okay, so because most people know Lindsay, let's just talk about her for a second. And she's your first child?
Yes.
How did she get into acting? Is acting something she wanted to do when she was little?
Well, when you're 3 years old, do you want to be an actress? No. She was a redhead with freckles, adorable, mm-hmm, very great personality. And her mom said, Dina always aspired to be an actress. When I was a kid, I worked in the industry. My brother did too. I was on some soap operas and did commercials. Mm-hmm. So I said to Dina, yeah, go ahead, take her in. So we signed her up with a company called Chickies Kids on Long Island, and one thing led to another. She did a lot of ads, and she did some commercials. Then Ford signed her.
Was she shy, or she was a natural?
Natural. She's just in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Singing and acting and painting. She's designing clothing.
Right.
Everything she touches, she does really, really well.
Right. So what was her first big break that you started to realize?
Parent Trap.
The Parent Trap. Oh, that was her first big break?
Well, yeah. Before that, she was on a soap opera called Another World, and she played a character named Allie Fowler. Okay. And at that time, she was going to be re-signed for a second season. She was nominated for an Emmy when she was 9 years old. But then the audition for The Parent Trap came up, and Dina and I just had Cody. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, he had an ear infection, so she couldn't bring Lindsay to the audition in California. Mm-hmm. So I brought her out there, and she got the role.
And for people that are not familiar with that movie, explain her role in that movie.
Well, she played twins, mm-hmm, and she did it. She pulled it off seamlessly.
Which seems like it would be an incredibly hard role to play because you're playing 2 different characters.
Yeah, and she had to switch in and out of personalities and in and out of character, and from one character to the other with accents, and it was just amazing how she did that.
Right.
I was just in awe.
And to this day, if you turn on the television at any given point, I feel like you can see that movie. If not that, Mean Girls, or any of the
Freaky
movies
Friday,
exactly. She's been in so many classics, which really is a testament to how
Oh yeah, I mean,
talented she is.
she worked for Gary Marshall, one of the icon producers and directors in Hollywood. The guy was amazing.
So how much of your
Jane Fonda. I mean, to work with Jane Fonda, and Felicity Huffman and Georgia Rule. I mean, that was amazing. One of her better movies too.
Right. So what was your role as her father at that point? Did you become a manager at all?
Daddy. I was always daddy. Still am daddy.
So Dina took on the role.
Yeah, I didn't want to be. Didn't want to cross that line. You know, you have the Macaulay Culkins of the world, and now you have the Britney Spears and the parents getting involved.
Yeah.
I worked on Wall Street. I came from a good family. I didn't want to have any active role or for anyone to say that I made money off my kid, which I've never done and never gotten a penny from Lindsay. Her mom was her manager, and she got 20%, and I think that was part of the reason why we got divorced.
What do you mean?
Because Dina felt like, I was always a breadwinner. And then when Dina had her own money, there was a lot of strife between myself and Dina's brothers and her family. Because Dina's brothers got involved in the business. They were running the fan club and the clothing and doing stuff around the house. And I felt that professionals should do that. And although it is good to have family around you because you can trust your family, sometimes you create some strife in a family that's just you can't repair it.
And we were talking about this earlier. I mean, there have been some cases where it works really well, like in the case of the Kardashians, and they have their mom as a manager. But then you look at someone like Jewel, who just came out in her book as talking about the fact that her mother was her manager and stole almost $100 million from her. So you almost think that you can trust that person, but sometimes you really can't.
Yeah, well, I think in that regard, Dina wasn't the kind of person to steal Lindsay's money or anything. She did make some bad decisions and turn it over to a guy named Mark Landsman, who was a money manager, and just money started just flying out and disappearing, and I had no control over it.
Yeah, well, it is hard to have that role, I would assume, because you're playing the role of the mom, but also the manager, but also, there's a little bit of a interesting, incentive for you because you are getting 20% and she is doing so well and having such big roles that the 20% actually matters, you know?
But it's funny you mentioned the Kardashians too, because before they even had the show, we were offered to do, our family was offered to do a show. We would have been the first Kardashian show.
Wow.
And that's when Dina and I were going through the divorce, and Dina didn't want to do a show with me on it.
Right.
So she did a takeoff of it, which was my ideal, called Living Lohan. And I don't think that was picked up for a second season, but
what happened? And I don't think I saw that. What was that? It was just about Dina and
a reality TV show with Dina and the kids.
Dina and the kids.
Yeah.
And were you featured on it at all?
No.
Because she didn't want you to, or you didn't want to?
Because she didn't want me to, and it wasn't really brought up to me. So
got it.
It's no big deal.
Okay, so let's. So Lindsay has been living in Dubai, right? She's now engaged or married?
Rachel.
Well, I'm asking
She's
you.
married.
Okay. And you
think
like
she's
this
having
guy.
a child out of wedlock? Do you think I'd stand for that?
No, I don't.
No.
So do you love this guy? Is he great?
He's a great guy.
And they
Great
met
guy.
in Dubai?
Yeah, I do love him.
Okay.
Yeah. And his family, for that matter.
And is it hard to see them because they live so far away?
Rachel, she lives in Dubai. Yes, it's hard to see her, yes.
So do you see them often?
Whenever they can get here, yeah. It's going to be a little while now because she's having the baby.
Right. Can you talk about when she's due or what she's having?
No.
But I assume you're really excited.
Yes.
Okay.
Sworn to secrecy.
Got it. Will she have the baby there?
I can tell you in the closet, but if you tell anyone, I'll have to kill you.
I know. So we'll talk about it after.
Okay.
But is she going to have the baby there?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So we're very excited for her, obviously. So talk a little bit about your breakup with Dina.
Why?
Because I think people would like to know what happened there. Because for so long, you guys were seen as, this kind of Hollywood.
Listen, we were dancing in the kitchen with our kids right up until a week before we broke up.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. My son, Cody, was having a communion party at my house, and I caught Dina's brother doing drugs, and we got in a fight, and I beat the crap out of him. And we wound up getting divorced over it because her family, it was a serious fight.
And how has it been?
See, that was misunderstood too, because they said I hit him with a shoe. I didn't hit him with a shoe. There was blood on my shoe, so they thought I hit him with the shoe. I came out of my car. He came out of his car. When he went to hit me, I slipped. I came out of my shoe and I hit him. He got cut, bled all over the car and the shoe. And they said I hit him with a shoe.
So here's where I think a lot of people wonder what happened. So you were a parent of a child star, and then kind of out of nowhere, you became, maybe not as famous, but famous in your own right.
You mean infamous?
Yeah. Well,
yeah, you can say
yes,
it. Infamous.
Okay, so infamous, but as Michael Lohan.
The bad guy.
But it wasn't just Michael Lohan, Lindsay's
No,
father.
because people,
You became
honestly,
known.
and one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show, and I love your title, is because I'm really misunderstood. People don't know my background. They don't know how I was brought up, that I was brought up by a wonderful family. I was a co-partner in the first electronic cigarette company. I developed Arizona Iced Tea's only snack food line. I put the Brooklyn Navy Yard movie studio deal together. Yeah. I mean, I've done one thing after another. I'm a businessman, and I do a lot to help people. I do a lot of charity work, including what led me to work in the addiction community.
Yeah. So, but at some point, there was some issues that led to a lot of things happening with a little bit of violence, like you were talking about beating up the brother, or some DUIs that you got into that got you arrested. And
no, not some, one.
Okay.
Only one.
Okay.
And that's pretty screwed up too, because I never had one in my life. And my first DUI, and they gave me 1 1/3 to 4 years in prison.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had to appeal it, and it took 21 months to even have it heard. And when it was heard and I won, I got out. But they got 21 months out of me for 1 DUI. No one got hurt. It was me hitting a telephone pole, actually my heart stopping. They had to resuscitate me and coming to an epiphany in my life, and that's what turned the course of my life.
Right. And you no longer drink, you don't?
No, I hadn't drank in a number of years before the accident, but something horrible had happened, and I was called on the phone by somebody, and it involved Lindsay, and I had a few drinks in contemplation of what was going on.
Yeah.
And I started racing to the airport and doing over 90 miles an hour. I hit a telephone pole and I died.
So, and we were talking about this earlier. I think it's really important for people to understand, especially people that are going through recovery or struggling with addiction, that a couple thoughts on that actually. So you don't consider yourself an alcoholic or an addict in that way at all, but you have chosen to stop drinking because you're just a better person.
False narrative. As soon as you admit that you drank or did drugs or tried drugs in your life, right away they make you into an addict.
Right.
No, I was never an addict. I did what other kids do. I never drank or did drugs, and through high school and college. When I went to Wall Street, everyone started drinking and partying here and there.
Yeah.
And I did, and I admitted it, and right away, as soon as they hear that, they want to paint this picture of you and paint the false narrative, and that's the truth. No, am I an addict or an alcoholic? Never was, never will be.
Right. But unfortunately, you've surrounded yourself with a couple of people who run into those similar patterns, right? So you have
too many.
Yeah. So
and people very close to home.
Yeah. So I think that's created part of the false narrative because of the association, probably.
You mean guilty by association?
Yeah.
Really?
Do you think so?
Well, if someone's an alcoholic and I hang out with him, it makes me an alcoholic?
No, but I'm saying from what people read about in the press.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They hear that maybe Dina has one, or Kate, your wife later, and they assume, they tie your name into it.
Well, we collect DUIs.
Yeah.
I have 1, Dean has 2, Kate has 3, Lindsay has 1. So, I mean.
So they just assume it runs in the family or something.
Well, you know what? Addiction does run in the family. But, it's very selective. Addiction is funny. People can have the addiction gene, but unless there's a traumatic moment or something that flips that switch on, it doesn't become active. People can live within the addiction gene all their life, but it won't become active. Some people do, some people don't. Why is it that if somebody has a mother and father that are both addicts, and then that person has 3 kids and only one is an addict and the other aren't, how can you explain that if they all have the gene? It becomes active with one and not the others.
Yeah. So you end up marrying another woman, Kate Lohan, after Dina. And how'd you meet Kate? All sorts of things you want to talk about.
All right, so let's rewind this a little bit.
Okay.
February 19th, 2005 is when I got my DUI. I did 21 months. When I got out, I went right into I worked for Teen Challenge. I went to Bible college, became a minister. I dedicated 2.5 years of my life to the ministry and helping people with addiction problems. During that time, I met someone named Aaron Muller. Erin and I were dating each other for a while. And Erin was sober, stayed sober. And during that time, Lindsay had been in Cirque Lodge in Utah. And Lindsay wanted me to visit. So I told Lindsay I was going to bring Erin with me. Lindsay said, fine. We went out there. And when we were out there, I guess In Touch Magazine, Bauer Publications were trailing our whole family. And there was a reporter named Kate Major.
Right.
That was reporting on my family. Well, anyway, one thing led to another. Kate became very friendly with Lindsay and me and Erin and everybody. She had a boyfriend. And then Kate had come to New York to visit, and she was actually left her relationship was dating John Gosselin.
I remember
from
that.
John and Kate Plus 8.
Yeah, it was interesting because she was a journalist at the time who then became the story because when there was Kate Plus 8 and John Gosling, who were always in the news, all of a sudden Kate was now dating John Gosling. So I remember her from that.
Yeah, so they came out. They were being pursued in New York City in his apartment, and she called up and said to me, can we come out and stay with you in the Hamptons? And I said, absolutely, sure, but no pictures, no nothing. Just we live a quiet life out here. One thing led to another, and Kate and John got into it. John Gosling got into it. He told her to leave her job and come work for him as a personal assistant. I said, we were friends. I said, don't do that. Don't be stupid. You have a great job. She did leave. He ditched her for a girl named Haley Glassman, who happens to be a really great girl, know her family really well. And Kate started hanging out with Erin and started drinking with Erin. And Erin relapsed, and we broke up. And Erin and I had broken up, and Kate went back to Chicago, and something was going on out there. But anyway, I get a phone call from, I forgot which network it was, but they said, Mr. Lohan was subpoenaing you into court because John Gosling violated his agreement with the network. And then Kate called me and said, did you get a subpoena? And I said, yeah. I said, for John Gosling. She said, I did too. She said, well, can I come and stay with you and keep the money from, what they're giving me and stay in the room with you? I said, yeah. Well, that was a mistake. One thing led to another. I was with Kate, and there came my son Landon.
Right. And how long ago was that?
10 years ago.
10 years ago. And you ended up marrying her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have 2 sons.
Yes, Landon and Logan.
Which are the best things that happened out of that relationship.
Amazing, blessed children. Yep.
So even though you've been raising these 2 amazing kids, you have run into some issues with Kate in a toxic way because you guys probably made more news in the last 8 years, I would say, than some of the news you were making with even Dina. And the news wasn't great. Let's be honest.
Of course not.
So what do you think happened there with such a toxic relationship?
I'm just the kind of person where I can't stand drugs and alcohol. And unfortunately, Kate struggles with that. And she, I have custody of my kids. I mean, it's kind of indicative that, it's gone pretty sour for her.
Right.
But, and
she's still struggling, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
I wish her the best, of course.
Yeah. And it may always be a struggle for her, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the part that I don't go and the part that is misunderstood is all of these things about, in Tampa, they said I jumped out a hotel window to get, and then arguments that we had, and there were violence, and I didn't do any of that stuff. Did I jump out a window in Tampa? Yeah, because Kate said I called her, and I wasn't supposed to speak to her. She called me, and she said I violated an order of protection by her calling me. And the police came to the hotel. She already called TMZ to have them waiting outside. She knew what she was doing. And I tried to jump from one balcony to another to avoid them, and I fell 4 stories.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And did you get injured?
Just black and blue.
So it's interesting because you still have stuck by her. I mean, and I think, and
she's the mother of my kids. Yeah. How can I not do that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think that's really important to note, though, because I think
Rachel, I have probably about 60 letters here from people who have said, thank you for saving my life, my son's life, my wife's life, my kid's life, and so on and so forth. How could I ever turn my back on someone that's a family member? Yeah. Someone that, is the mother of my kids.
But I think that's really important to make note of, because people that don't know you might not know your history with being loyal and protective. And even though people have read so many things about you and Kate, or you and Dina, or whoever it is, having altercations, because I think people know you as like a tough guy sometimes, and sometimes involved in stuff.
No, I'm not.
But
I'm a tough guy.
But I would say, as being your friend, that I know you to actually be very caring, a good father, someone who's very family oriented.
And likewise as a mother.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And you put your kids first. And I think that is something that a lot of people misunderstand about you, because they think that sometimes they see you in the headlines and they think that's what you're about.
I never wanted that, Rachel. I never wanted that. I was in the headlines to clear the record, at the beginning, and I don't even bother doing that now.
Yeah.
It's like water off a duck's back. But I'm the kind of person where if you're going to lie, or I hear you lie about me, I'm going to step up and I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Just like we'll talk about in a little while.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's nothing, if something is said about me and it's true, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
No matter what. But don't lie about me. Don't lie about my kids. Don't lie about my family.
Yeah.
Don't, because I'm going to call you on it.
Well, and I think that's really important, because I remember way back when I didn't know you, I would see you on TMZ or different places, sort of having not press conferences, but saying your story, getting your word out. And I think the criticism there was like, why is he involving everybody in his problems with whoever it may be?
I'll give you an example. What was that idiot lawyer's name? Mark?
Which lawyer?
The lawyer that represented Lindsay, then Dina.
Yeah. We'll get the name, but.
Yeah. Can you look that up? Mark, whatever. Anyway, he was out there and he was just using Lindsay, just using her just for his own purposes, just to get his name out there.
Yeah.
And he wasn't doing anything to help her. This is my daughter struggling with some real life issues, and you're out there just trying to poo-poo it and just get your name out in the press. I wasn't standing for that, and I did have a press conference, and I chased him around outside. He was outside the courthouse after Lindsay got sentenced, and he's just doing a dog and pony show. Wow. And I wasn't going to stand for that.
Yeah. So, I think that helps to clarify, because a lot of times people would see you almost, they thought, adding fuel to the fire, let's say, by speaking. But I don't think that that's as much anymore, but I definitely understand now why you felt the need to take a stand, make your own statement. And as someone who the media has narrated my story, it's very difficult to sit back and not have a voice.
Well, that's being protective of your family when people are trying to use them or say the wrong thing about them and hurt them in any capacity, whether it's physically or hurt their career, their reputation, or their, whatever they're doing in life. And especially overlooking the real needs that they have when it comes to addiction, and just trying to, to me, if someone has an addiction problem, if you get them off the hook scot-free and you're not addressing the problem, it's a disservice to the person, because it's not going to get better.
So when I had my store, I took in a girl who was homeless. I gave her a job, and she ended up being more nuts than what I could help her with. I really thought,
I remember.
Yeah, I really thought I could help her, and I really liked her. But then I started to see signs of her being Erica. And the fact was, I couldn't help her because clearly she was doing drugs and she wasn't telling me exactly what was going on, and she was becoming unreliable. So I called you. And you ended up helping her. You put her in rehab for me. But let's get to that for a minute, because at some point you decided to get into the treatment world. Yeah. Talk about that, how you got into that, what that job was.
Well, when I had the accident in 2005, I went through an epiphany. I was on a mission that night, and I was going to hurt somebody, and God stopped me from hurting someone else, and I got hurt in the accident. And actually, instead of taking a life, he took my life and gave it back to me, and I decided to dedicate my life to helping people with addiction problems.
So there's a question twofold there, because I want to talk about the treatment centers and the addiction side of it, but is that when your faith really blossomed that night?
100%.
Had you been involved in church or believing in God before then?
I grew up as a Catholic, but I didn't really know religion like I knew it when I studied the Bible. I went to Bible college and, really understood what the real meaning of the words in the Bible were. I went in Teen Challenge. I worked for Pastor Jimmy Jack at Teen Challenge, who was an amazing, amazing man. And I really gave my heart and soul to it. And from there on, after I worked for them, I started in the private sector and opened up my own rehab. and it was doing really, really well. But I had some partners that were in it for the money and not for helping people. Mm-hmm. And if the insurance ran out, they kicked them out of rehab if they weren't ready. And I wasn't standing for that. I would take these guys that they were kicking out, bring them in my own house, and I kept them clean for a long, long time. They stayed clean.
Yeah. And how long were you in this treatment business?
16 years.
So what made you get out of it?
It's funny. It's ironic because the first treatment center I opened with a guy named Brett. I'm not going to say his last name. Mm-hmm. Well, Brett was broke on Long Island, driving a broke down car, living in a broken down house. And he asked me what I was doing, and I told him, and he got some people to invest in a rehab with me. And because he got the investors in, he was a partner in it. Well, fast forward a number of treatment centers later, we sold that first treatment center. He screwed me out of a bunch of money, but in order to get that money back, I stayed in business with him. And he wound up getting in trouble in a treatment center that he asked me to come in and revamp and help recreate. And I built a whole wellness department for it and did a lot of promotion and marketing. Well, he got in trouble again with the owner of the treatment center. And the two of them conspired to say that I was patient brokering. Okay. And that means sending people to the treatment center and getting paid for the people you sent. Now.
Getting paid by who?
By the treatment center.
Okay.
So, number one, my paychecks were the same amount every month. Mm-hmm. They all amounted to the same amount. Yes, they were broken up to $2,500 and $5,000, or $2,500 or $7,500 and $7,500 and $2,500 because they didn't have the money all the time. However, it was all the same amount. Mm-hmm. Never got paid for one single client. However, because these idiots said so, they charged me with patient brokering. I went ahead and I took 3 polygraph tests, passed every word, every question, and every test, and a voice stress analyzer test, and passed all of those questions and that test too. They still charge me. And as recently as only a month.
And what was the actual charge?
Patient brokering.
Oh, okay. And what's the...
They said I got paid after 16 years of treatment. They said I got paid something like $16,000 for referring patients. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? Please give me a break. It just makes no sense.
What is that punishable by?
Well, it was probation and a fine.
But is that what you were looking at? I mean, could they have sent you to jail?
No, they could have done more than that. But look, I think they knew, if I wanted to go and fight it in court, I could have. I would have spent probably another $150,000 to $250,000. It would have been all over the news. My daughter was relaunching her career. We didn't need that negative press. Right. I'm a man. I took it on the chin.
Right, but that must have been hard for you because this had been your career for a while.
Yeah, because I really loved doing what I was doing. It gets overwhelming after a while dealing with people and getting calls at all hours of the night and trying to find. And some people you do lose. There's some people that you really put your heart and soul into, and they wind up dying. Right. And it's, it's a hard
and it's very hard
to swallow.
To see that. Speaking of which, I just want to talk for 1 second about the fact that you're sitting here with all these notes from people saying how you've affected their life and changed their life.
I have over 60 letters here, and that's only half of them of people that said I saved their life or changed their life or their kids or their mothers or husbands or wives. Yeah. And it's, it's just sad that they would take the word of these 2 liars. Yeah. Ironically, who are charged with, and they pled guilty, and in order to reduce their sentences, they said I was patient broker.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Let's get back to Celebrity Rehab for a second, because you made some interesting friendships then. Who was on your episode?
Oh, lots of people. Doc Gooden.
Love Doc.
Love Doc. Yeah. Great guy.
Such a great guy. And Dwight Gooden is who we're talking about from the Mets, the 1986
and the Yankees.
Mets, right. Well,
with
I know
Darryl
him.
Strawberry.
Yep. But he suffered from, it was cocaine, right? A cocaine habit. Mm-hmm. And, but just one of the sweetest, most genuine guys ever.
Great guy.
Yeah.
His kids are great too. His son was great.
Yeah. All right. So go on. Sorry.
Amy Fisher.
Great story. I'm dying to get her on the show. She tell a
Long
little bit.
Island Lolita.
Yes.
She became very friendly with Amy. She's and met her husband Lou on the show and stayed friendly with them, but they broke up.
I think it's very interesting that somebody that has the stigma of shooting in the face the woman who's married to your lover when you're the mistress was able to find a man to marry her. I just think that's very interesting.
I
can't get married.
I'm going to sleep with one eye open, believe me.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious to see how she turned out.
It's funny, though, because Amy is a great mom.
I'm sure.
She really is.
Well, and that's part of why I do this podcast, because, listen, people do crazy things. Mm-hmm. People make mistakes. But sometimes we don't know what's going on in their head, and it would be interesting to get in her head, hear why she did it now, like what she would say now about why she behaved that way as a young girl, and how, if she feels remorse, and if she's ever reached out to the woman she shot, and was it Mary Jo? Yeah, Mary Jo Buttafuoco. If she had any contact with the guy she was sleeping with, and how she kind of went on in her life with having that stigma. I think it's really interesting.
It is.
Conversation.
I don't know where she is today. I think she's dating some other guy, but I lost touch with her probably a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But Jeremy Jackson was on the show. I stay in touch with him to this day. Jeremy's a great, great guy.
Yeah.
Like a brother to me.
And he also was interesting because he had a girlfriend who...
Lonnie, a wife.
A wife, okay, who suffered with some drug issues, maybe some mental health issues, and she's now homeless. But even after people have reached out to her, she chooses to stay homeless. And she was a beautiful girl.
Funny?
Go ahead.
So the last time I saw Jeremy and Lonnie was right here in Delray, and we had dinner down here, and they were the happiest couple. They were both, fitness fanatics. Jeremy's always been a fitness nut, in great shape and happy, and I just don't know what happened after that. Yeah. I really don't. Just derailed. And the next thing I know is I saw Lonnie pushing a shopping cart on Venice Beach, homeless.
Yeah, it's really sad.
And Jeremy, there was a story about him stabbing somebody or something, or whatever, but it's...
really sad. Okay, so who else was of interest on your cast?
Those were the most interesting people. Bailey, the Chinese actress, she was on it. She was great.
Yeah,
she was amazing. We had a lot of interesting people on the show.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else that you keep in touch with now to this day?
Not really. I stay more in touch with the people from family therapy than I do Celebrity Rehab.
Right, and we were talking earlier about the thought process that even though you wanted to help all these people, it is, these people have to really want the help to take it. They have to reach their version of rock bottom to actually make the turn.
Addiction to me is a choice. Mm-hmm. It really is. Yes. Is it physical to a degree? Absolutely. But once you get through the withdrawals and you're sober, it's up to you whether you want to pursue that or not.
Yeah.
It's a choice that you have to make. It's hard, but it's a choice. And
that's a really difficult thing, though, because it's like when you have someone in your family who's suffering from an addiction, you want to make them get better. You want to force them to go to rehab. You want to change them. And I think what a lot of people don't come to terms with is that it's really up to the person.
It is.
To get the help and accept the help and want to make a change and want to put one foot in front of the other every day.
I agree 100%.
So let's see what we want to get to here. Talk a little more about your faith now.
I'm very faithful. I love God. I raise my kids like that. We pray all the time at night.
So it became, and that's what I wanted to go back to for a second, because I think it was very important that your life changed that one day when you had that accident, and faith became a big part of it. But now it's something you've passed down to your kids. It's something that it's in your daily life.
Well, my father never really, was a very religious guy or spiritual guy. He was a dad, my coach and a tough guy and just a really wonderful provider. He really was. My mom was just an angel, just the most amazing woman I've ever experienced in my life. Right. Anyway, I wanted my kids to have more. I wanted them to have that relationship, not only with me, but with God. They love God. They love going to church. We talk about God all the time. We make it more relevant to their life and how to apply his principles in their own lives. I'm kind of, I try to keep them on course when they do the wrong thing. I said, is this something that God would want you to do? And so on. And they think about it and discuss it with me. And they're just amazing kids. They really are.
Right. So now that you're not in the treatment center business anymore, you are doing new things to supplement your life and to move forward. What are you working on now?
more in the wellness industry. When I got out of treatment, I got into wellness, and what I mean by wellness is more holistic wellness, like hyperbaric chambers and IV therapy and cryotherapy chambers and something called hypoxia chambers. So, and not to get into a long discussion, but where a hyperbaric chamber forces the air into your system, a hypoxia chamber takes it out of your environment. So it's like being at high altitudes and training at a high altitude. It gives you more stamina, endurance. It actually increases red blood cell development, which in turn produces more oxygen in your system and healing.
Right.
Then we do ozone chamber therapy. We do red light therapy. We do everything under the sun, neurotherapy to help balance your brain waves. And I took that to another level, and one thing led to another, and our company acquired an atmospheric water company that actually it's all wellness related, that actually takes the moisture from the air and converts it to pure drinking water. It can work on electricity, solar, or generator. We have a government contract. We are now franchising that system so people can use water machines. And we have, we're actually making some really innovative products called blast caps for some very high-end athletes. There are caps that go on the top of a water bottle, and the ingredients are in the cap, not in the water already. And you push down on the cap, it's all patented, and that powder goes into the drink, you shake it, and you drink it. Now, why that's important, and people don't realize this, is when you get a vitamin water or an energy drink or anything like that, even water in general, it's hot-filled in that bottle. When you hot-fill anything, you're diminishing all those vitamins and the minerals and all the nutritional value of it.
Yeah.
It's like boiling spinach. The spinach, when you get done, has some value, some of the vitamins that you need, but most of it's in the water. So by having this technology, all the ingredients aren't being boiled or anything, not being exposed to light, to temperature, and we can actually even put probiotics in there, which need refrigeration, or pharmaceutical medicines in there, like malaria medication and diarrhea medication, which kill most of the people in Africa. And we can actually put them in these caps, and we can make it for 1/100th of the price of regular vaccine is.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of really neat stuff.
Great. So do you think that people will ever see you on a reality type show again?
No. Never. No, not interested, no.
Okay.
I have 2 little boys to raise.
Yeah.
And a life to live.
Right. Do you follow pop
And
culture?
a coming along.
Right. You just announced what it was, but we can take that out. Yes. Breaking news.
You have to cut that.
I will. Don't worry. Are we going to name it something?
Let's do that over again. And a grandchild coming along.
Okay. Which we are all excited to find out what it is. I was going to say, should we guess? Am I allowed to guess? But now I can't guess. I'm going to guess a boy. Do we get to put names in the pot?
I don't even know the name.
Oh, are you suggesting names to her?
Nope.
Really? You're staying out of it?
Yep.
Okay. Do you think it's going to have a Middle Eastern name?
No, probably a spiritual name.
Oh, interesting. So she's spiritual as well. Yeah. Do you follow pop culture anymore? Because you were a big part of it, and your daughter was a big part of it.
Not really. It doesn't bother me. You know why, Rachel? Because I just know that so much of it is BS.
Right.
You don't know what to believe unless you're firsthand. And,
right.
It's just people are just mean.
And as you and I know, I mean, what you read in the tabloids is so different than what people's realities are. And I think that even to this day, even though, back then when we were in the press a lot, it was like Star Magazine, Us Weekly, In Touch, all those kinds of things. But that's online, right? Then it moved to more online. TMZ, X17, Radar especially. And now it's
Star Magazine.
Yes, right. So now, though, it's moved to, you can find gossip on Demois or wherever it is. You can find it all sorts of ways. But I constantly am listening to people have conversations about stories they read, of which they are not part of the story, and they talk about it with such authority, like they know what's going on.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is one of the things that really bothers me, because even when I'm reading a story or listening to people talk about a story about some sort of celebrity, if I don't know them, I still get almost like upset about it because I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
But you take it personally too because it's been done to you.
Right.
I mean, in so many ways.
It's been done to me, but also I just think the ignorance of people that really believe that stuff, and they base an opinion on one of the people versus the other, right? And someone's a good person, someone's a bad person, always.
People love gossip. They love drama.
Yeah.
They just don't know. They're bored with their own lives. So what if they talk about other people?
Right. And it makes their lives not seem so bad.
Perpetuate that rumor and make it worse and worse, and it's not right. It's like telephone. The telephone scenario.
Yep.
You can say one thing, and after 10 people saying it, it
comes out as something different. Yeah. But what I don't think people realize is how hurtful it can be to someone's reputation, and because that person is a real person. It was difficult for me for years to like kind of associate with people getting my daughter into school. The moms didn't want me there for something that had happened 10 years before.
Jealous.
But it's more than that. It's more like they just want someone to, it's like herd mentality, that they just want to really dislike that person because it makes them become a friend with someone else that also doesn't like that person.
Right. It makes them, makes them more relative.
Yeah, right. But someone very smart told me that you should look to the people that, write bad comments about you or all the people that have negative things to say as like a fan club. And that group of people are the people that you realize like you live in their head and they have nothing to do with you, right? And so it kind of makes you feel better if you think of it in that way. There's
different ways of spinning it
to
make yourself feel better about it. Just, to me, people that gossip aren't worth my time.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about, like my daughter Allie really taught me this. She said, "Daddy, I just don't deal with negativity at all. Just get rid of it." And I know that as an adult.
Yeah.
But to hear your own child say that and say, "Dad, just let it go. Don't let it bother you. It just festers in you."
Right.
And it's true.
Last question. What is the most misunderstood thing about you, because there are a lot, that you want people to know now going forward?
I don't know if I can identify just one thing, right?
Okay. Well, you can say as many as you want.
No, it's just, I'm my own person. I really am. And I just, it's never about anyone else. It's about me. And to me, loyalty and honesty and trust are the most important things that a person can live by outside of loving somebody.
Okay. And me as an outsider and a friend looking in, I would say something misunderstood about you is that you did a lot of things for the headlines, or you just were associated with a family that was all about the headlines. And that is just not, it's just not true.
You're right about that. I do more things for people than I do about myself, and the headlines, I don't do things for headlines. Unfortunately, you wind up in the headlines sometimes.
Yeah.
But my life is about serving other people, not myself.
Right.
It always was and always will be.
If anyone is struggling right now that's listening with a family member that is in having some addiction problems, having some personal problems, or they themselves are, what would be a suggestion for them to do to get some help?
Be proactive. Don't deny it. Don't put it off, but do something about it.
And ask for help, probably.
Yeah, and I can't give that help anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because I'll be in violation of the terms of the agreement I signed.
Right.
But there's people out there that can help. But
Yeah.
the most important thing is get help.
Right. And I would say it's to not feel alone, because I think so many people in certain circumstances, and it doesn't even have to be addiction, but they're living in their head with all sorts of...
isolation causes addiction. There's no doubt about it. Looking during COVID, how addiction soared.
Right.
Everyone was all bottled up, literally bottled up, drinking and doing drugs. Do you realize how many drug dealers made a ton of money during COVID?
Yeah.
They were delivering drugs constantly. While supermarkets and everyone else was closing down, their shop never closed down. It made it worse and worse.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, just that one part. You got to take it out.
Don't worry, I will.
Okay. Thank you. But no, I want to say this, that I shouldn't say I'm surprised, because I know what you're capable of, but what you've done with this show is just absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you.
People you have on, and just you're a natural talent for doing this.
Thank you.
You're very comfortable to talk to.
Thank you. And I appreciate you being on with me, especially as my friend.
It's an honor.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to see you all the time. I love you.
I love you more.
Thank you so much for listening to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Yucatel. Please be sure to subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star rating and review. You can support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/misunderstood with Rachel Yucatel. Do you have ideas for the show or want to reach out? Email us at info misunderstoodpodcast@gmail.com. That's spelled MISS understood. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.